want to go over to the audience. Natalie, do you have a questions for the three panels?
Given the discussions that we're having, I would like to know from the three CEOs, when you set out as a CEO of JET, what was your vision, and do you think that you've actually achieved that vision at the end of your tenure as CEO of JET?
My vision was, I saw a lot of activity. One of South Africa's strengths is its civil society. We are blessed with a large number of NGOs. As James has said, that can be a disadvantage if they're not working together. But I saw this as an opportunity to actually understand what the impact of the NGOs was on the school system and teacher development in particular. And that necessitated us to start developing evaluation and research skills. And I think we've been quite instrumental actually in the country in taking forward the agenda of evaluation, making it more widespread among these activities. Because people, in the early days, they used to assume our intentions are good, therefore we must be doing good work. But actually there's many a slip between intentions and implementation, as we know. And evaluation and research is the key to closing that gap. So I think over the last 30 years, in fact, JET has really been instrumental in pushing the agenda of evaluation, developing capacity, developing awareness about it, and making sure that, that these kinds of activities are strongly, rigorously evaluated, and the lessons distributed. And one of the problems with evaluation is that if you get a positive result, of course, you trumpet it everywhere. If you get a negative result, you hide the report in a cupboard. And that's a problem, because those negative evaluations are as important. This is the thing you must not do if you get a negative evaluation. There's no shame in that. We tried our best. It didn't work. We've got to try something else. So that's the next frontier of evaluation for me, is publicizing the negative lessons as well.
So, I mean, when I got into, it used to be Nick's office, my first intention was to continue with the transition, which I think was an important, win, particularly between Joint Education Trust and JET Education Services. I think that was a fantastic, transition from a completely funded, donor-funded or private sector-funded trust to a self-sustaining, organization. So the books were not looking very good, and I thought, we're gonna look at, strengthening the transition. So the first thing I looked at was to go through a beta organizational re-engineering. Fortunately, I knew a bit of JET, before, and changed the structures. And importantly, I mean, we went through interviewing people for new positions at JET. And my whole intention was actually to make a transition or finalize the transition from working with project managers to educationists. The period before required us to have lots of project managers to manage donor funding and so on. The period that I was managing required educationists with educational ideas that we had to sell, to the system. So I think we did, fairly well. It was very bitter. We had to move people around and lose some people. And look, I think we succeeded, and particularly given that I had a young team, Carla, Anthony, and then we brought Michelle, each of them as divisional heads, and they ran much faster. And I used to say to them, if you're going to work successfully with the system, you must mark somebody in the system like you're playing a soccer game against them. So I said, go and mark somebody. Influence, bring back, work to do and that sort of thing. So I think it was a good, successful, period in finalizing or tightening up that transition that started almost 10 years, before I joined jet. And secondly, the fact that the NECT, which has raised and invested over 2.5 billion rands in the past 8 to 9 years, the fact that it was founded from JET, I think it's a big win, you know, and I think it's a big win not just for JET but for the country. So that's part of what I thought the team contributed to the country during my tenure at JET.
So thanks, Natalie, for the question. I wish I had this discussion with my two colleagues next to me 10 years ago. Now, when I joined JET, I don't know, I mean, believe it, I came from SAQA at the time, you know, SAQA. I don't think I really know what I let myself in for. Can I be honest? You know, JET was in a difficult place, and it's interesting, organizations go through cycles. I mean, we've just heard 2 cycles. So this is not anybody's fault or anything, it was a new cycle. And it was a tough cycle. You know, the first 3-4 years was just about sustainability. It wasn't about fancy research, it wasn't about doing new models and systemic change, it was about survival. That's all it was. And the one lesson I've learned in this period was that culture in an organization is much more important than strategy. You know, all the business people tell us this. I don't like business books, I don't read business books, but there's one thing that I know. Culture matters. And what we did over that first 5-6 years was focus on culture. Who is the team? What is the team like? Is the team quality focused? Can they take the pace? A lot of people dropped off during that period. So that was what I set out to do. Nothing fancy, just focus on culture. And guess what? Culture takes the longest to change. So it's actually been a difficult journey, but we're out of it and we're in a good place now, Natalie. Thanks.